Adolf Hitler, hero or villain? Adolf Hitler, a name that continues to evoke strong, conflicting emotions. For some Germans in the early 20th century, he was seen as the man who resurrected a broken nation, restored pride, and rebuilt a shattered economy. But for the rest of the world, Hitler remains the embodiment of evil, a tyrant, a symbol of hate, and the mastermind behind the most horrific genocide in human history. The question we ask today is not just historical, but also moral. Was Adolf Hitler a hero or a villain? A troubled childhood and a shattered dream. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889, in Braunau am Inn, a small town in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. His father, Alois Hitler, was a strict and authoritarian man who wanted his son to become a civil servant. But young Adolf had different dreams. He wanted to be an artist, a painter. Twice, Hitler applied to the prestigious Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. Twice, he was rejected. These rejections crushed him. As a young man, he lived in poverty on the streets of Vienna, selling postcards and struggling to survive. It was during these years, alone, bitter, and disillusioned, that Hitler's worldview began to darken. He was influenced by nationalist ideologies and anti-Semitic rhetoric that were circulating in Vienna at the time. He began to believe in the superiority of the Aryan race and saw Jews and Marxists as enemies of society. The war and a deep sense of betrayal. When World War I broke out in 1914, Hitler immediately volunteered to serve in the German army. Though still an Austrian citizen, he considered himself a proud German. He served as a messenger on the front lines, an extremely dangerous role. He was wounded twice and decorated for bravery. But when Germany lost the war in 1918, Hitler was devastated. He could not accept the defeat. Even more, he could not forgive the Treaty of Versailles, which imposed harsh penalties and humiliating terms on Germany. Like many others, he believed that Germany had been stabbed in the back by internal enemies, Jews, communists, and the weak leaders of the Weimar Republic. This belief, this betrayal, became the foundation of Hitler's future political ideology. He made a promise to himself and to the German people: Germany will rise again. The rise of a fanatic. After the war, Hitler joined the German Workers' Party, a fringe nationalist group. Quickly, he rose through the ranks. His charisma, oratory skills, and ability to manipulate public emotion turned him into the party's most powerful voice. The party was renamed the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, or the Nazi Party. In 1923, Hitler and his followers attempted a coup in Munich, known as the Beer Hall Putsch. It failed. He was arrested and sentenced to prison. But in prison, Hitler found time to write his manifesto, Mein Kampf, My Struggle. In this book, he outlined his beliefs: racial purity, anti-Semitism, German nationalism, and the necessity of absolute power. When he was released, he returned to politics with even greater determination. The economic collapse of 1929 gave Hitler the opportunity he had been waiting for. Fear and desperation drove millions of Germans to embrace the Nazi Party. They wanted strength. They wanted order. They wanted revenge. In 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Within a year, he had eliminated all opposition and declared himself Führer, the supreme leader of Germany. Rebuilding a nation, or engineering a nightmare. It must be acknowledged, in his early years of rule, Hitler revitalized Germany. He launched massive public works projects, including the famous Autobahn system. He reduced unemployment and restored national pride. Germany, once humiliated and impoverished, seemed strong again. But that revival came at a terrible price. Hitler dismantled democracy, censored the press, and ruled through terror. The Gestapo hunted political dissidents. Concentration camps were built, not yet for mass murder, but for re-education and punishment. Jews, communists, Roma, homosexuals, and others were labeled as threats to society. At the same time, Hitler began indoctrinating an entire generation of German youth through education and propaganda. He did not just want power, he wanted loyalty, faith, and worship. And once he had it, he set his sights beyond Germany's borders. World War II and the crime against humanity. In 1939, Hitler invaded Poland. Britain and France declared war. World War II had begun. In the first few years, Germany swept across Europe with astonishing speed and brutality. France fell. Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium. Hitler's armies seemed unstoppable. But behind the front lines, something even more terrifying was taking shape. Hitler launched what he called the final solution, the systematic extermination of Jews in Europe. Over 6 million Jews were murdered in death camps like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor. Alongside them, millions of others were also killed: Slavs, Roma, disabled individuals, political prisoners. Hitler wasn't just fighting a war for land. He was fighting a war for ideology, a racial war. He believed he was cleansing the world, creating a pure Aryan future. But the cost was the greatest humanitarian catastrophe in modern history. By 1945, Germany was collapsing. Allied forces closed in from the west. The Soviet army surrounded Berlin from the east. Refusing to surrender, Hitler retreated to his underground bunker. On April 30th, 1945, he committed suicide. His dream died with him, but the scars he left would never fully heal. Final judgment: hero or villain? So what was Hitler? A gifted orator? A strategic leader? A man who restored a broken nation? Or a delusional, power-hungry tyrant who brought death to tens of millions? The answer isn't in how he rose, but in what he did with that power. Yes, he rebuilt Germany's economy. Yes, he inspired loyalty. But he also unleashed a war that killed over 70 million people. He institutionalized genocide. He dehumanized entire groups of people. The legacy of Adolf Hitler is not one of greatness. It is one of horror. He is remembered not for his achievements, but for the atrocities he committed. His story is a warning of what happens when hatred meets power, when a nation's pain is weaponized by a man who offers not hope, but fear. In the end, perhaps the real question is not, was Hitler a hero or villain, but this: how did we let him happen?